Severe weather warnings across Queensland and the Northern Territory. Tropical cyclone development possible off Western Australia. Heavy rainfall accumulations building across Cape York Peninsula. That is the situation we are dealing with heading into the weekend. Right now, conditions across Northern Australia are prime for significant weather activity. And if you are in Queensland, the top end, or anywhere along the WA coastline, you need to pay attention to what S developing over the next week. Let S start with what S happening today and tomorrow across southeast Queensland and the New South Wales North Coast, because there has been quite a bit of confusion about the thunderstorm risk. Across southeast Queensland this morning, conditions have been muggy as all hell. Brisbane hit the high 30s yesterday, arvo, with humidity making it feel even worse. That warm, sticky air mass has been parked over the region all week. Up on the Sunshine Coast and through the hinterland, same story. Uncomfortable conditions that Haventee led up. Down into northern New South Wales, Lismore and Grafton saw fog this morning. That is a clear sign of high humidity building through the lower atmosphere. When you've got that much moisture sitting near the surface combined with daytime heating, you've got the ingredients for thunderstorm development. The question is whether those storms actually fire up and become severe. And that S where the forecast gets interesting. Looking at the satellite imagery from early this morning, there is cloud streaming across southeast Queensland. That cloud is actually going to put the brakes on storm development through the Sunshine Coast region, at least for today, but where skies have cleared, particularly through the Gold Coast hinterland and into northern New South Wales, that S where we're re-seeing the atmosphere destabilise. Out in the Coral Sea, a couple of thunderstorms have already developed. That tells you the tropical moisture is there. The tropical air is pushing into this system. The fuel is available. It's just a matter of the trigger mechanism coming together. The forecast models for this arvo show thunderstorms developing across the Lismore and Grafton area between 6 and 7 this evening. The European model, which I am looking at closely here, suggests these storms could be quite robust. We're talking about moderate risk for large hail, heavy rainfall and damaging wind gusts. Not catastrophic, but worth paying attention to if you are in those areas. As we head into the late evening hours, probably around 9 or 10 tonight, some of those storms cross the border into southeast Queensland. By that stage, they've had time to organise themselves. They'll be stronger versions of what they were earlier in the day. So Brisbane, southern suburbs, the Gold Coast, and areas through the hinterland could cop some solid thunderstorm activity tonight. Further inland across Queensland through Chinchilla, Roma, Kogan, we're not expecting severe weather. If storms do develop out there, you might see a strong wind gust or two and a period of heavy rain. But in all fairness, the risk is very minimal for inland Queensland today. Now, Saturday's forecast is where things get complicated, and I want to be straight with you about this because there is potential for disappointment if you are hoping for decent rain. There is a low pressure system sitting off the New South Wales Central Coast. This thing is quite strong. In fact, it drops below 1,000 hectopascals by Saturday arvo. That's a significant low, and it is going to hold back the thunderstorm potential across southeast Queensland. Here is why. When we get severe thunderstorms through this region, particularly the really solid ones, we're usually looking at a southeasterly trigger. That's a southeasterly wind change that pushes inland and acts like a lifting mechanism for the atmosphere. It forces unstable air upwards, and that S, when storms explode, many of you remember the 1st of November last year, wild severe thunderstorms ripped through southeast Queensland. That was a textbook southeasterly trigger event. The dry line was far inland, just like it is now. And we had strong southeasterly winds, 30 to 40 knots along the coastline, pushing that trigger inland. Saturday's setup looks similar on paper. The dry line is inland. The moisture is there. But here is the critical difference. Those southeasterly winds are only forecast to reach 10 to 15 knots. That is barely a sea breeze. It is barely a trigger at all. Without that strong southeasterly push, thunderstorms are going to struggle to get off the ground. The environment is conducive for storm development, absolutely. But if you don't have the trigger mechanism to initiate those storms, they simply 1T fire. And that S, what Saturday S looking like right now, Sunday brings a different pattern. The southeasterly flow picks up. We're re-looking at showers, maybe the odd thunderstorm. The difference between just showers and showers with embedded thunderstorms comes down to convective available potential energy. When we're talking about basic showers, CAPE numbers sit around 0 to 500. But when showers have thunderstorms embedded within them, CAPE climbs to 500 to 1500. Sunday S sitting in that 500 to 1500 range, which means there will be thunderstorms. There may even be small hail. Expect some heavy downpours. Potentially hailstones around 1 to 2 centimetres, nothing like the golf ball-sized hail we've become familiar with across southeast Queensland in recent times. more like a bag of frozen peas dropping on you. Unpleasant but not devastating. That's the southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales situation sorted. Let us shift focus to what happened yesterday in Victoria because it's relevant to understanding how these coastal low-pressure systems can produce extreme rainfall in a very short period. Yesterday, parts of the Victorian coast saw some of the worst flash flooding outside of the tropics that I've seen in Australian history. Apollo Bay, down near the Great Ocean Road, copped 186 millimetres in 3 hours. That's massive rainfall in a very short time frame. The setup was a low-pressure system sitting offshore with cloud tightly wrapped around it. Thunderstorms got themselves jammed up against the coastline. They couldn't have moved, they just sat there and dumped. The result was catastrophic flash flooding through areas that simply aren't built to handle that volume of water that quickly. It's very lucky nobody was seriously injured or killed. The same setup is now developing off the New South Wales coast, but the forecast suggests it to be as intense as what Victoria experienced. Still, northern New South Wales needs to watch this system closely over the next 24 to 48 hours. Right? Let's talk about the Northern Territory and the tropical cyclone situation developing across northern Australian waters. Because this is where things get serious. First, the good news for Darwin and the top end. You're getting rain, solid rain. The monsoon trough is strengthening. Showers and thunderstorms are increasing. Darwin saw rain start at 6 this morning and it hasn't let up. That pattern continues through the weekend and into next week. Across the Tiwi Islands, heavy rainfall is expected. The Gulf of Carpentaria is seeing enhanced shower and thunderstorm activity. And across Cape York Peninsula, we are looking at scattered heavy rainfall accumulations between 100 and 400 millimetres from this weekend onwards. That's significant rainfall. If you are in Cairns, the Daintree, Cooktown or anywhere along the Cape York coast, you need to be prepared for wet conditions from Monday onwards. Rivers will rise, crossings will go under. This isn't just a bit of rain, this is proper wet season activity. Now, the tropical cyclone situation, and I need to be very clear about what we are dealing with here because there's potential for multiple systems to develop over the next week to 10 days. In the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, between the Northern Territory and Western Australia, we've got tropical low 16U. This system is expected to develop over the next couple of days. Current forecast models suggest it forms near Darwin, then tracks west out into the Indian Ocean. Once it's out over the warm waters of the Indian Ocean, conditions become extremely favourable for rapid intensification. Minimal wind shear, maximum humidity, sea surface temperatures sitting around 29 to 30 degrees Celsius. That cyclone fuel. This system is small, and small systems are particularly susceptible to rapid intensification when they hit favourable conditions. We've seen it before. A small, relatively weak tropical low moves out over warm water and within 24 hours it is a category 3 or 4 cyclone. Normally at this time of year, systems get dragged into the Kimberley coastline prematurely. That is because the jet stream is still relatively far north. But we're now heading into late January. The jet stream is sinking south, and that means tropical systems have the opportunity to track further down the coast. Pilbara, Gascoyne, tracks that we usually see in February or March, not mid-January. Major forecast models are showing substantial intensification. Some are suggesting this system could come ashore near Port Hedland as a Category 4, potentially even Category 5 cyclone. Now, I need to stress something here. The system hasn't even formed yet. We don't know if it'll be small or large. We don't know exactly where it'll track or when it'll make landfall, but the potential is there. And if you live anywhere between Broome and Exmouth, you need to remain very vigilant on this forecast right now. That includes Karratha, Onslow, Port Hedland, Derby, and potentially even Wyndham. This is a very significant situation developing. If this system reaches Category 3 or stronger, we are talking about a very significant tropical cyclone landfall somewhere along the WA coastline. The chances are now elevated. Greater than 50% that somewhere across the Western Australian coast in the next week and a half sees a Category 2 plus cyclone. I do not say that lightly. Western Australia, you need to start consuming daily information about this system. Official forecasts from the Bureau of Meteorology, unofficial analysis, what the models are showing, where the system is tracking. Start preparing now. Stock up on essentials. Secure loose items around your property. Know your cyclone plan. For those of you who have been through Cyclone Tracy, you know what a Category 4 or 5 system can do. Christmas Eve, 1974, winds up to 217 kilometres per hour. Darwin was destroyed. This system, if it reaches those intensities, will be extremely dangerous. Out in the Coral Sea, we've got tropical low 14U. This system is heading towards Vanuatu. Tropical cyclone development is possible as it tracks towards New Caledonia before recurving back down towards Norfolk Island and New Zealand mid-next week. Good news for Queensland, this system is not expected to approach the East Australian coastline. Its closest approach looks to be well offshore. No impacts expected for Queensland. Definitely not for southeast Queensland. The system is getting its act together quite nicely. Still embedded in the monsoon trough, but looking relatively healthy. It will bring heavy rainfall to Vanuatu, heavy rain and potentially strong wind gusts to New Caledonia. If you're on a cruise in the area, don't to worry. Your captain will avoid a developing tropical cyclone, but expect showers and thunderstorms. Now here's where the forecast gets interesting for northern Queensland. With tropical low 16, you expect it to develop near Darwin and then head west into the Indian Ocean. That leaves an opening for another system to develop across the Cape York Peninsula or into the Coral Sea. Forecast model consistency is absolutely shocking right now. Major models just don't know what to make of this situation. There is no agreement between the European model, the GFS or the Access model. They are all showing different solutions. That tells you the atmosphere is in flux. Conditions are primed, but exactly how and when a system develops is still uncertain. ID put the chances at about 20 to 25% right now for a tropical low to develop off Cape York Peninsula and then track south. If that happens, we're re-looking at a period of wet weather increasing from Monday and Tuesday, the 19th and 20th of January, then really picking up between Thursday and Friday, the 22nd and 23rd, before easing back next weekend as the system crosses the Queensland coastline and dissipates inland. But I'm not going to speculate on impacts beyond that. It's still too early. The system hasn't formed. We don't know where it'll develop, how strong it'll get, or exactly where it'll track. What we do know is that the monsoon trough is strengthening. Tropical moisture is increasing across northern Australia, and the atmosphere is becoming more conducive for tropical cyclone development. Multiple systems are possible over the next 10 days. For those in far north Queensland, particularly Cairns, Port Douglas, the Daintree, Cooktown and communities along Cape York, you need to monitor this situation daily. Conditions are going to deteriorate from Monday onwards, regardless of whether a tropical low develops. Heavy rainfall is coming. Be prepared for flooding. River levels will rise. Roads will go under. If you're replanning to move house in the Daintree on Monday or Tuesday, you might want to consider rescheduling. Crossings are relatively low right now, but that changes quickly when we start seeing 100 to 400 millimetre rainfall accumulations across the catchments. Better to delay a move than to find yourself stranded or dealing with flooded roads. Now, let me put this all in perspective. We're now in the peak of cyclone season, November through to April. This is when northern Australia typically sees tropical cyclone development. What we're dealing with right now is not unusual for late January. Strengthening monsoon trough, multiple areas of interest, potential for rapid development. What is slightly unusual is the potential for a strong system to track down the Western Australian coast into the Pilbara or Gascoyne regions this early in the season. That is more of a February or March pattern. But the jet stream positioning is allowing it. And when conditions align, tropical cyclones Don-T care about typical patterns. They develop and intensify based on what the atmosphere is giving them right now. For southeast Queensland and Brisbane, I know you've been waiting for decent rain. The dams are getting low. Gardens are struggling. 3 months with minimal rainfall takes its toll. This weekend, S activity might bring some relief, but Don-T expect it to be the drought breaker. Sunday, S showers and thunderstorms will help, but it's not going to fill the dams or solve the dry conditions. The humidity you've been dealing with across southeast Queensland and Brisbane is a product of that tropical moisture pushing down from the north. It's uncomfortable. It makes the heat feel worse than it actually is. But it is also a sign that moisture is available in the atmosphere. When that moisture combines with the right trigger mechanisms, that S when we get significant rainfall events. For now, manage expectations. Be prepared for thunderstorms this evening if you were in northern New South Wales or southern Queensland. Watch the forecast closely on Saturday to see if that southeasterly trigger strengthens, and expect showers with embedded thunderstorms on Sunday. Northern Territory, you are in for an active period. The monsoon is ramping up, rain is increasing. Thunderstorms are becoming more frequent. This is what you expect for late January in the top end. It is the wet season doing what it's supposed to do. Western Australia, particularly from Broome down to Exmouth, you have a potentially serious situation developing. A tropical cyclone forming in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf and tracking west into the Indian Ocean with conditions favourable for rapid intensification. This could be a major cyclone, Category 3 or stronger. You need to start preparing now. Far North Queensland and Cape York, heavy rainfall is coming. The monsoon trough is strengthening. Whether or not a tropical low develops, you're going to see significant rainfall accumulations from Monday onwards. Be prepared for localised flooding, river rises, road closures. This is proper wet season activity for those wondering about fire conditions, particularly in southern Australia. That is a separate issue we'll need to monitor as we head into February. Right now, the focus is on tropical weather, heavy rainfall and cyclone development across northern Australia. If you are in livestock country, particularly across northern Queensland or the Northern Territory, make sure your animals have access to shelter and high ground. When we start seeing these heavy rainfall accumulations, low-lying areas flood quickly. Cattle can get stranded. It's worth checking paddocks and moving stock if necessary. For those on the water, whether you are fishing, cruising or working, pay close attention to marine warnings. The Bureau of Meteorology issues specific marine wind warnings and tropical cyclone warnings. Don't take risks. A tropical cyclone at sea is not something you want to experience firsthand. I'll finish with this. The next week to 10 days is going to be active across northern Australia. Multiple weather systems are developing. Tropical cyclone formation is likely. Heavy rainfall is expected across large areas. This is not the time to be complacent. Check the Bureau of Meteorology daily for updates. Monitor your local conditions. Have your emergency kit ready. Know your cyclone plan if you're in cyclone-prone areas, and stay informed. For Western Australia in particular, this developing tropical low in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf has the potential to become a very serious cyclone. The conditions are there for rapid intensification. The track is uncertain, but the potential impact is significant. Take this seriously. That is the forecast for Friday, the 16th of January. Severe thunderstorms possible across southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales this evening. Heavy rainfall building across the Northern Territory and Cape York Peninsula from the weekend onwards, and a potentially significant tropical cyclone developing for Western Australia next week. Stay safe, monitor the forecasts, and we'll keep you updated